All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 322 of Together BHA. We got Adam and we have the much absent Craig of late. Lovely to have you back, Craig.
Thanks.
How are you both doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, not too bad. Busy life. What about yourself, Adam? All good?
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been busy lately. I think I'd quite like to not work anymore. That'd be good. I'd quite like to retire. And there's quite a lot in the way of that occurring.
That is not a thing over here, mate, either.
Yeah. So we'll see. Aside from that, great. But and it was nice to. I mean, I'm still pretty chuffed about the fact that our football team seems to have remembered how to play football again. So, Josh, how are you feeling?
Yeah, pretty good. Quite significantly remembered how to play football.
Yeah.
As well. 1 win in 13 to 5 wins in 6. Not bad at all. And it's weird, right? Because we're recording on April 12th, right after the Burnley game from the 11th. And we haven't played a game of football since the 21st of March. How did we like this new elongated gap here that we got going on? Because obviously this was for the FA Cup, right? They had the FA Cup weekend, which they're kind of mandating has to be played on a weekend now, and the international break. But I think at the beginning of next season, they are going to have the 2 early international breaks bundled into one long break like this. So how did you like this? Would you prefer it this way, or would you prefer games 1 full week off, games 1 full week off, or do you think screw it, this wasn't too bad, let's just 2 weeks off in a row?
I didn't actually mind it at all. I thought it was a nice little disconnect from, like, especially if you get into the later rounds of the competition and stuff. I'm sure it's a lot, but like, I didn't mind having a couple of weeks off. I think sometimes actually helps. Like, I think we always talk about the absence of a winter break and what Germany and everyone else does. So, having a sustained break off, it's helped us. It hasn't hindered us. So, yeah. But what about yourself, Adam?
Here's what they need to figure out. They need to work with other sports and ensure that regions don't get invaded and wars started, because I'd be fine if there was like an F1 race during one of the weeks we didn't play. Instead, we have this complete absence of sport at the weekend. And frankly, it's just not good enough. And the fact that the Masters fell on this weekend when Brighton are back, like, spread it out. They need to do a better job working this out. So, at least I have something to enjoy each weekend.
You're telling me that you didn't want to watch 2 40-year-old heavyweight boxers fight last weekend?
It's crazy. I know.
A draw for you.
It is weird, but no, I decided I didn't want to do that. But yeah, outside of that, that's generally how I feel about the gap. But I suppose we probably have a slightly different perspective if we were like in the FA Cup still, where we would probably be like, this is fine. We're happy with it. Of course, that was not the case.
Yeah, and obviously we're on a hell of a win streak too, right? Like, we're on a really good run of form. So the worry there is that we would come back, play a team like Burnley, who I think have only won 1 in the last 23, 24, and we would go there and mess it up, right? Like, just because that's the way it tends to go with Brighton after longer breaks. Thankfully, that didn't happen. Most of this podcast we'll be talking about the fact that we won a football game, so we continued that winning streak, and the push for Europe, which is bizarre to think about as well when we were talking about the things we were talking about in February, especially post Palace. So going to Burnley yesterday, they are obviously in incredibly poor form. I think even Wolves are picking up points at a faster rate than they are towards the end of the season. The fans are not bought into Scotty Parker whatsoever, and it is a long old trip for the Albion to come up to Burnley as well. How are you feeling about this matchup, especially given that, honestly, our run into the end of the season is not all that difficult either? Did it feel like, and this is one of those phrases that people hate it, but did it feel like a must win if we want to come for Europe or not?
I mean, I almost feel like sort of almost every game at this point, you sort of have to win, with maybe barring the Chelsea game. But even that, if they don't win against, who are Chelsea playing? Man City. So they're not going to win that. Obviously, people listening to this after they've beaten Man City, it's going to sound even more stupid than it did then. But how close are we to them in the table? It's like, it's close, right?
It's like 4 or 5 points, isn't it?
They're at 48. We're on 46 at time of recording, and they've just lost 2 on the trot. So, I mean, the fact that there's 4 points that separate 6th and 13th, we're completely. This is in our control at the moment to get European football. And wasn't at the last round of games in the Champions League, didn't it just get fully confirmed that it's now going to be five teams in Champions League, right?
Yes, correct.
So that would mean Europa goes down to 7th,
8th, I think. With that.
And then what's the...
Oh, I suppose with the cups, actually, yeah, because Leeds are still in it and Southampton are still in it. If Man City Chelsea is the final, then it definitely drops down to 8th.
And then the fake one that no one really cares about, is that 9th then?
No, that would be 8th.
That would be 8th. That would be 8th.
As long as it's a Chelsea Man City final in the FA Cup, Conference League is guaranteed to be 8th place again.
I mean, yeah. So when you sort of have to win them all if you want that, right? It's so close within that grouping. And like we said before, all of these games are hypothetically winnable, but the games, I'm looking at the games against Chelsea and Newcastle, are absolutely key. Like if you want to pinpoint, I suppose, the games that will have a direct dependency on whether we will make Europe, those are the ones where we are in and around those teams. Wolves, Leeds, I guess Man United are a little bit further ahead, aren't they? But it's those two.
It's very similar to last year, though, isn't it? Where you finish 8th and like you thought that would be enough, and then somebody not within that 8 wins the FA Cup, and all of a sudden you're not in it. So like, I guess we have left ourselves a lot to do, but it is achievable. And I think with this sort of turnaround in form, and I think going back to your question, Josh, around like confidence going into yesterday, like you're on the back of a good run. Like you've only really lost to Arsenal in the last month and a bit. Like it felt like a banana peel, if you like, but Burnley are doing so awful. You kind of like, well, we're expected to pick up 3 points here, and just given our form, like it wasn't. I was confident going into it, but again, like as the game went on as well, like we did run our chances a little bit because it wasn't comfortable at all.
Is it, Josh? Is it disappointing now if we don't make Europe, in your opinion, based on how the last few games have played out and where we're at?
No, I don't think so, because we're in a situation where there are so many vying for it at this point that I don't think so. No, we've actually won 5 in a row before. So in the Prem, literally just over a year ago, right after the famous 7-0 pasting at Forest, we went on to beat Chelsea twice, Southampton, Bournemouth, Leicester. So like we can do it. We've done 5 in a row before. That would obviously we're 3 of the way there. So obviously that would be huge. So it's not only doable. We did it literally last year. So like we definitely can push on here, and we are almost the perfect team in terms of coming into this late, because all of our injuries almost have fell off. Like with this extra time off has probably helped a lot as well. And we've got a lot of players that were injured that are not so much right now, right? Like Mitoma, I think, is at this point a tactical decision to keep him dropped. For me, like they're winning 2 games on the bounce. Why would you drop him to bring him in when they've already just won some games?
He scored a pretty nice goal against England. That's probably maybe one of the reasons you bring him in.
Yes, he did. But Minte was really good yesterday, right? Other than actually hitting a ball on target. Like his crossing, as per usual, from what you were saying, Adam, a left footer on the left, were just horrendous to defend against. They had no idea what to do there. In terms of the lineup itself, what did we all think with that? Obviously, dunk out Buscaglia in. I think we all probably projected that he would be the one coming in. I'm not sure there's another centre half really viable to come in at this point. We got rid of the rest. And then Hinchelwood continues in the 10. And Ayari in for Milner, who has a slight injury from Friday in the most classic late injury ever for Brighton. Do we ever see Milner play football again after that?
Yeah, who knows? And we keep forgetting about it. Don't forget about Igor. Igor could have played. But I think the one that stood out for me, Craig, I don't know about you, Hinchelwood, back in the old 10 position again, started.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he seems like a polarizing topic right now. In like whether he should actually be in that position or not. But I don't know. It's a weird one. I do like to see him play because I do think there is lots to him. But I think as a 10, and especially when you're going up against sort of relegation elect side, right? You want a router or you want a 10 there to be a little bit more dangerous. I feel like he's a more conservative decision in that role, like just to get more control, which completely makes sense. But otherwise, yeah, I think it was a pretty good lineup as expected, to be fair. Like the only thing you would change is maybe Hinshelwood and maybe having Ruther on the pitch at the same time in that 10 role. We know we've spoken about that before, but on the whole, like regardless of which team you put forward, right? You had Kostulas on the bench, you even had March on the bench as well. Like you're fully expecting what 11 we put forward like should be able to beat Burnley. So it was more of a case of, okay, how are we going to get it done?
And Josh, I don't know about you, but despite the fact that we've given Hinshelwood a hard time, and he seemed, especially in the first half, like there was not a lot going on, stats wise, he was performed fairly admirably. I think a lot of what we saw in the first half, right up until obviously our star striker, Mats Weiffer, pinged one in, we saw that lack of being able to be clinical from a finishing standpoint from the team. Welbeck wasn't entirely looking like it was his day in that regard. Minte completely scuffed and missed a shot. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but I really want someone in that front line. If Welbeck isn't firing, I want someone to just bang the ball in the top corner that isn't playing right back out of position, that is meant to be a defensive midfielder and now suddenly becomes our goal scorer. If you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. Yeah, because Welbs didn't look at it at all yesterday. He looked just off the pace, and I think Burnley did a good job of just crowding him out at every opportunity. But he still had some, right? Like he still had the ball fall to him a few times. I think we ended up with 1.91 xG, and the two from Weiffer weren't super high. Like they were high enough, but not massive. So we had a lot of opportunities where I thought we really should have scored. But I suppose before you even get to them, you've got to talk about the 6th minute goal from them that was offside. Because from our perspective in the stand, I was convinced it was like significantly offside. And yet when I came out, I was flabbergasted at how close both of their offside decisions were. Obviously, the one down the other end, I had no idea, like because we're at the other end, so I can't really see anything going on other than like the Burnley fans cheering and then it get ruled out. But the margins in which both of those were ruled out were to the same kind of level of outrageous as Welb's one. I think it was against Bournemouth, wasn't it? Where his sleeve was offside.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite nice to finally be on the other side of it, isn't it? But boy, like, could have been a very different game. And it was literally a definition of millimeters almost that saved us from that.
So I don't want to sound elitist, firstly, but you were there, right? How bleak is Turf Moor? Because it looks bleak from the TV. I've never been.
Here's the thing, right? Because in one way, here's the best way of doing it. Brit's perspective. Brit hates it. She thinks it's shit ground. She hates that there's poles in the way that you can't.
Right, yeah.
It's too steep, so you can't see the goal when you're actually like behind the goal. Like you can't see it enough. She thinks it's crap. She hates it. For me, though, at the same time, like it's a proper old football ground. Like it's got like the charm of being like the sort of places that we've always played at. Brighton have always played, although bigger than most of the ones we used to play at. Right, but like it's like an old football ground. Like it's a proper football ground. Like, and like it's in the middle of the town, right? Like it's like good area, like in terms of getting to it. And like it's just a proper northern football ground. Like, but yeah, it's not great.
So it's sort of like a kind of fun one to visit in a sort of nostalgic way. But if that was like our ground, you'd be pretty sort of mortified. You'd
be gutted, wouldn't you? Yeah, you absolutely would. Yeah,
because that nostalgia would have worn off a long time ago.
Yeah, like game 3,
just shitty. So outside of that, a Turf Moor ground review, I still think they're goal was onside. I don't see how it was offside. I still don't see it. I've watched replays, and for me, the goal should have stood. I'm a big proponent of, if it's very, very, very marginal, let it stand. Ferdy Kadioglu forgot what an offside trap was. Boscagli was a little bit slow to the jump too, but you can excuse him of that. Ferdy was the one that really, wasn't doing a great job of it. Van Hecker was ball watching. No one decided they'd properly track the runner until Weiffer decided he'd give it a go, and it was nowhere near him. So no, I think it should have been 1-0.
Yeah, I thought the same. I the first one more so than the second, but I thought they were so minimal. Like you said, that you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Like if you had that go against you, then there's all of a sudden you're like, well, why is that being called off? Like the advantage should be to the attacker, etc. So yeah, I thought exactly the same. We just switched off, and I think it's a really different game. Obviously, the opposite. And if that's allowed to stand, then I believe it should have. So it's a weird one again with the offsides and stuff like that. Like with giving advantage to the attacker, you can't really do that when it's binary in this way. So we've had them go against us. You then get favor of them. Like you feel like it might even out over the course of a season. A couple of teams might be more scrutinized than others, but you win some, you lose some in that respect, and that's just where we are with the current game, I guess.
It feels like for a team like Burnley, they lose quite a lot, right? Like because they can't even get that onside. They can't, like when it rains, it pours.
Yeah,
for those guys, because they're not even playing terrible football at times, right? Like they're playing all right, but they just couldn't get anything. And then after that, pretty much from then on, like it was all Brighton. Like I feel like we had at least 3 more chances before the goal itself where Minte ripped them apart down the left, or Kadioglu, who made a couple of really good runs that were just giving them nightmares. Again, Boscagli, some really good balls over the top. Van Hecker as well. His 100th appearance, I think it was yesterday for the Albion in the Prem. The left-hand side was an absolute menace yesterday for Burnley. They just did not know what to do. And I think I saw the stat on Match of the Day yesterday that I think 43% of our attacks came down the left yesterday. Almost half of them, which is mad, really. Not so mad when you realize that a quite poor Diego Gomez was on the right, to be fair. But how do we solve this? I guess, do you think that Seamas is the answer, or Ruta, or Costolos? Like, in terms of the fact that we need to score goals when these balls get whipped in, right? Because Minte is the one doing the crossing. Like, he can't also do the scoring, and when he is in position, he doesn't hit the ball anyway. But what is the answer here for our goal scoring woes other than Welbeck? Because when, as you say, Adam, when he's not on form, we don't have one. And we can't rely on Mats Weiffer to score one every game, because they were his first 2 goals this season, and he's never scored a brace in his life before. God love him, but he's never scored them. He even said himself, he's like, I never scored 2 in my life before, let alone like in the Prem. So like we can't rely on that always happening, even though the second finish was outrageous, by the way, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But what is the answer? Because it feels like the players that should have the best finishing are actively benched. And the players that are playing football alongside Danny Welbeck are not the players you kind of want in a one-on-one position, right? Hinchelwood, Gomez. You'd much rather a Mitoma, a Minte, a Ruta, a Costolas, right? Like just on like basic logic alone, surely.
Yeah, and it's the observation about us going very, very heavy down the left, and we've always been a team that goes heavy down the left for as long as I can remember at this point. Pascal Gross drifted out to the left a lot yesterday. Total crosses, Pascal Gross 5, Minte 5. Of the 5 that Pascal Gross put in, 4 were accurate, which is incredible. Diego Gomez 1 cross, just completely left out on his own. I also got quite upset when Ruta came on and Diego Gomez was on the pitch still, because their hairstyles, they need to sort that out. Like, it's not okay the way they've both gone for the bleach blonde look, and I was having trouble keeping track of both of them. One of them needs to switch it up. I mean, I think to answer your question, one part of me, and this isn't helpful, part of me wonders how amazing João Pedro would have been if he was still here. Because we've pivoted to this heavy crossing formula over the last 6+ games, and it's working. João Pedro was incredible getting his head on balls, if you remember, when we finally crossed.
Just to clarify, are we talking about the João Pedro against Marseille or the João Pedro picking fights with Van Hecker in training?
You know, you can't have one without the other. if you want João Pedro at his best, you've got to accept him at his worst. So I think, someone of that type would be incredible, especially if you sit him in that 10 in addition to Welbeck up top. That said, if you think about, you said maybe if Weiffer can't be the answer, are we in a position where we could see a Mikel Merino-esque Mats Weiffer plonk him up further along the pitch in the 10 role, and you've got the big lad in there, can get on the end of crosses and clearly can smash him in? I don't think it's any weirder than playing the man at right back based on what we observed yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, how much do you change? Because I think I look at the Welbeck chance like at 15 minutes in, and I think that should have been at least a chance on goal. Like the one where Minte just completely fluffs it and just doesn't even get a purchase on it, right? You think
47 minutes as well, Craig. The ball came in from Gross, headed back in, and Danny Welbeck. Then I don't know what he did.
Yeah, and then that was when Hinshelwood tried to somehow put it back on goal, and so like I don't. This is also not helpful because I don't think there is an answer to the question, because you think you probably either need to have the 10 or the 9 replaced, because I don't think you change anything on the wings, because I don't necessarily feel like that's a valid option. I think if that Minte chance falls to Matoma, I think it's a very different thing. I think if you find Welbeck on a different day, he's got 2 goals. And I think what you said, Josh, in the chat is that it could have been 5-0 and we really wouldn't have batted an eye. In that, like, if you took those chances, you're sort of 4 or 5-0 up by half time. But that's just how football works. So, I don't know how much you'd really change, because Minte was exceptional. And I think, if he got a goal to his name, you're talking about one of the best first halves from a player you've seen in a while. So it really comes down to that 10 conversation with me. Is that like, is Hinshelwood the right answer at that 10? Like, is it really pushing Weiffer up always? Like, he's had one game where he scored 2 goals, and then otherwise he has 0 presence in terms of front of goal. So I think it really does come down to the 10 conversation and who's going to be there. But again, the game went the way that it did because of the people that we had on the pitch. So, how much can you really change?
Yeah, and just to add to the crossing and the accuracy, I know you were talking about like 4 in 5 accurate. There was one from Minte that was actually probably the best cross of the game, that a true number 9 would have just tapped in, but we didn't have one. So it just fizzed across the front of the goal from 6 yards out. And
is that the one with his weak foot? Like, where he took it on his right foot?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. And it literally just went across the front of the goal and nobody was anywhere near it. And you've got to think, again, you've got to think a João Pedro taps that in. Like, I feel like that's the sort of ball that Seamas probably just taps in the back of the net and like gets an absolute easy goal that you'll just go, that's what we signed him for. Like, it doesn't matter what he does, he's there to just pop them in. But what Welbeck is being asked to do and what he is good at doing, he's not always going to be there. It's just the way it is. And if you've got Jack tracking back too, then you're even more isolated up there. It's tough.
I think the one thing with João Pedro was the interchangeability of him and Ruta, in that like they could swap positions and they could be somewhere else. So you almost had 2 people talking to each other and being able to play in the 10 and the 9 at the same time and being able to back each other and stuff. With Danny Welbeck, you don't have that. Like, he's a 9, and sort of when he does drop deep, you're then pushing Hinshelwood up top, and we know that he's able to score goals, but not to the effect of some of the people that we have on the bench. So I think that again comes down to the 10 conversation, which is annoying.
So This is a stupid observation, but Mitoma, when he played for Japan against England, and also when he came and played for Japan against Scotland recently, technically did not play left wing. The way Japan line up with three at the back and the winger, he's tucked in more as part of a duo that sort of sit centrally-ish behind the striker, and then he has the ability to drift out and also stay centrally. I'm of the opinion that you mentioned earlier. Obviously, Minte is doing some pretty incredible stuff on the left. His crossing, left foot, left wing, great. Don't disrupt that. We talked about the potential of Mitoma on the right-hand side. He's never done it, so probably it might not even be an option. For me, if Mitoma's fit, you can't have him on the bench. You just can't. It's sacrilege. He's too good for that. Like, drop him if he's unfit or injured, sure. But if he's fit, you start him, in my opinion. I think we could do worse than seeing what he can do at the 10. And if that 10 position needs to drift out to the left as needed, instead of, Pascal Gross doing it from deeper like he did yesterday, I wouldn't hate seeing that. Just because I think he has to play. And if you're not going to play him on the left and you're not going to play him on the right, put him somewhere.
Yeah. Well, let's talk goal number one, because it came at the cliche perfect time, right? Like right before the halftime whistle. And this one came from a Pascal Gross cross from the left, shockingly enough. And there was 3 of them lined up at the back post, which kind of just shows Burnley's struggles, right? That they allowed so many players to be wide open. But it was a superb finish from Mats Weiffer, wasn't it? And I suppose that's what Hertzler wants from him playing right back. You see him invert an awful lot and almost become a centre midfielder at times to allow Gomez to stay out wide. But I don't want to spend too much time on what I think Gomez does or doesn't do well. But like for Weiffer, like the ability to just run forward and cause a problem, like he is an issue when it comes to playing those passes and those late runs. Like obviously we've not seen him score very often, but we've seen him make those runs and become an issue and become a problem. And I don't think Veltman has that up and down in his locker anymore, right? It's just a bit older and it's pretty natural that he's just about over it, which is why he probably played up right wing yesterday for the last 5 minutes. But what do we do with the Mats Weiffer conundrum? Because Milner is not getting any younger, right? So he's obviously not going to be starting at centre midfield for much longer, surely. Yasin Ayari, totally different type of player. We also had Pascal Gross yesterday at 35, right? Like, how much longer is he going to be doing that job as well? We've just talked about Jack Hinchelwood and what he can and can't do in the midfield. And we don't actually have like a viable right back right now, right? Like, unless we want to move Kadioglu out there again or fully go back into the Veltman role. So what does 2026, 2027 look like for Mats Weiffer? Regardless of whether we make Europe or not, which is, I love being able to talk about that and not the other way, right? Like, because we were far bigger worries 2 months ago, but we are a Premier League football team next season. And we are going to sell Carlos Baleba this summer, right? Like, it's pretty much a given. We're not going to feel very happy with the fee we get. And I think we're going to feel even more annoyed come November when like he's playing in his prime against us and we're all just like, what a traitorous dickhead. But when we know he's gone and we know those others are on like a different platform to Weiffer, what do you think the future holds for Mats Weiffer in this football team? Because clearly Hertzler values him, right? Because he shoehorned him at right back. So what do you see this looking like for him? Do you think right back that's it for him? Do you think that he does take a midfield role? Or do you think, like Adam, you said, like, do you think they go even wilder and just like start putting him around anywhere you want? Right wing, left wing, striker, goalkeeper. Like what do you think the next season looks like for him? Because he's probably the biggest unknown out of everyone.
The fact that in the chat, Doom earlier on, or as we're recording this, said, is the Weiffer project working? That is a shift in the social perception that has now occurred, because up until this point, it has been Why is he playing there? And then it's, I guess for now, he can do a job. Now it's slightly transitioning to, is it actually working? Like, are we going to reach a point in a couple of months where he's a pretty good right back? So I don't know. The short answer is none of us know. Invariably, what's going to happen is we're going to sign some guy that we've never really heard of that is going to be in a position to back up James Milner or Pascal Gross sitting deep in one of those roles in the six, basically. And we'll bed them in over the course of 1 to 2 years, and that'll be the sort of future solution for that position. I think at this point, with the number of injuries and absences that we had in earlier parts of the season, if we were going to see Mats Weiffer play defensive midfielder, we would have seen it at this point. Clearly hurts. They're just like, no matter what else happens, he's not playing him there. It doesn't matter how many injuries, what's gone on, he's not going there. So that makes me think that it's right back or bust for him under Hertzler. Now, whether that is, Hertzler goes off and starts to manage Leipzig or whatever he's being rumored with at some point, and another manager comes in and goes, why are you playing this monstrous Dutchman at right back? I'm going to put him here instead, potentially. But clearly Hertzler has a preference, and it isn't to play him at defensive midfield at any point.
Well, Craig, to expand on that, is it because do you think he's feeling that way because he's not happy with the right back options and likes Weiffer enough that he feels he can trust them in a role?
What right back options?
That's my exact point, right? Or is it the fact that, like, he's, as Adam says, he doesn't rate him as a centre midfielder and doesn't want to play him there regardless, so would just stick him there instead? Like, do you think the lack of right back options are the issue, or Weiffer's and Hertzler's centre midfield agreement is the issue?
Column A and column B, maybe just a little bit of both. I think to Adam and to Adam's point, just there is no right back options, right? Veltman is 35, 36. Like, I don't think he'll be able to do it.
We played right wing for the last 10 minutes yesterday, didn't he? He's a right winger.
Well, for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, but I think you also, especially under Hertzler's system, you kind of get cursed by your own versatility sometimes. And it's like, if you're playing at right back, you're doing a good 6, 7 out of 10. So we're just going to keep you there, because like, I need someone that's able to do 3 or 4 different jobs, and I need them on the pitch. I need Veltman playing right wing. I need Kadioglu at the 10. I need Diego Gomez to play defensive mid and on the left wing. So like, there's those sort of facets to Hertzler's system where you have to be able to do 2 or 3 jobs impeccably in order to play. And I think that's where Weiffer comes into it, in that I don't think, and again, to Adam's point, I don't think he really fits in the system from a centre mid perspective, because he wants those 3 or 4 completely changing roles all the time. You have Gross going out onto the left and then a defensive mid picking it up. You've got Hinshelwood at the 10, but also coming back to pick it up. Like, Weiffer's not really that box to box, or he could be, but I just don't think he's been given a chance. So I do think you're doing a good job there. Therefore, you're going to stay there, like, because we don't really have any other choice. But also, like, once you do reinforce at right back, and I would like to think that we absolutely do so, I think then there's more options maybe for him to be in that middle or to rotate around. If you do start talking about Europe and you talk about it carefully, in that, like, if you are playing in multiple competitions, you do need that depth, and Weiffer is depth when it comes to versatility and being able to play in 3 different positions. So I think that's where he really fits in that he can do a job in multiple areas. He's not a 10 out of 10 in any of those areas, but he can give you a 6 or a 7 in 3 or 4.
Josh, what do you think about the quote from Hertzler? He when talking about Weiffer, he claims, we want him to have the freedom to attack spaces like a midfielder, and we know that's one of his strengths. He's developed really well as a fullback because he has this freedom to join in as a central midfielder, and defensively, he's very physical. He's dynamic, and for me, he's one of the best Dutch players in the world, so hopefully he has a chance to go to the World Cup.
I don't disagree with some of it, and some of it is football manager backs him to the moon, which is just like Moor at 11, I guess. Like, of course, Hertzler thinks he's the best one. It's like the Football Manager game quotes where it's just like, and what did you think of Jake Robinson's performance today in League Two? And it's like, he's so good. I would take him over Erling Haaland. It's just like, what? Like, why would anyone who would ever say that? Let's go like, what the hell is the guy's name from who was Plymouth manager for a while? Leicester as well. The really funny lad from, what the hell is his name? Not Ian Holloway. Is it Ian Holloway?
That's who I thought you were.
He's pretty funny, yeah.
Yeah, him. That's the sort of thing I would imagine him to say. Like, he was so good, like some random League Two striker. Like, I'd take him over Mbappe with a straight face. Like, that's the sort of thing I'd expect him to say. But that's very much like what Herzer is saying there for one of the best Dutch players in the world. Like, he's the worst Dutch player in that starting 11. Right? Like, like Verbruggen and Van Hecker.
Harsh but fair.
And the thing is I'm also incredibly smug about this because I've been a Weiffer defender from day one, and I'm very smug about the fact that he is coming good. And I still think I'd prefer him in midfield for sure, but I really like him, and I think he's built like a player that should be successful in the Premier League. And I'm glad he's doing well or better than he was. World Cup. He's got a lot of competition in front of him at right back, hasn't he? Dumfries is for one of them. Like, he's not going to beat Dumfries for a right back position. I don't know.
Way.
Like,
it's Dumfries and then what, Frimpong if they need to attack?
Yeah. So, like, I feel like you could, to play devil's advocate to myself, I could see Weiffer getting a call up if they needed a utility guy. Right? Like, if you need a player that's comfortable playing at fullback or centre back, or because for a while there at the end of the Burnley game, we went to a back three, and Weiffer just played centre half next to Van Hecker and Boscagli, while Veltman just kind of managed the right side, like as he does. So at the same time, you've got that option there where it's like, well, we've got 23 really good players, and we need one more who can do a couple of jobs. Matt Weiffer's been doing it all year in the Premier League. Stick him in. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I could see him getting called up for that reason, but certainly not anything more than that. But we'll see. Like, the Dutch player going to the World Cup that I'm worried about, and everyone should be worried about, is Bart Verbruggen, frankly. It sounds like he's just absolutely going to be gone this summer.
Well, we're getting Manuel Neuer now, aren't we?
No. I did totally misread that article when I first saw it at Turf Moor, but I understand what it means now. Like, obviously, if he bins himself off, then Munich are going to come straight in for Verbruggen. Is the combo?
Neuer's been finished for a while at this point. Yeah,
that's why I was baffled. I was like, why do we want some spaghetti-legged 45-year-old goalkeeper coming in? Like, we do not need any of this. Like, prime Neuer, obviously outrageous, but now, like, this is the last thing we would want. But at the same time, I think if Verbruggen goes, which I think it's 50-50 right now. I think it's guaranteed if he has a good World Cup. I think he's definitely gone. I think we're going to want to do a deal quickly because poor Coventry are going to be sat waiting to know if Cole Rushworth is theirs or ours. And I think if Verbruggen goes, I think it's pretty obvious that Rushworth will be our number one next season. Steely will sit behind him, and Beadle will go back on loan in the Championship again. It seems like that production line will just continue unfettered. And I think if Verbruggen stays, I think it's probably time to cash out on Rushworth and sell him for the 20-25 million, with probably a nasty resale on as well, and move on from there. But we've gone way off topic.
Well, I mean, it's still vaguely Brighton, isn't it? So, I mean, we'll talk about golf. It makes sense.
Let's move on to that second half, because that first 15 minutes from Burnley, they piled it on, to be fair to them. They didn't really do much after that, but that first 15 minutes in the second half, it looked like we had forgot that the whistle went, because we were not at it, and they very much were. And there was a couple of opportunities there. One, the second disallowed goal by half a kneecap, like truly half a kneecap for anyone who's seen the image. If you haven't, I really recommend you go look at what that image looked like. Maybe next season we'll do this in a more visual format, and like we'll share these images on this screen. But it was just the most minimal offside I've seen in a long time. It was up there with like the forehead and the nose offsides that Scott Parker was talking about the other day as well. But there was also a phenomenal save from Bart Verbruggen, from Fleming as well, from a set piece that was honestly looked like it hurt him the way he took the splits. But he kept us in it there. And after that first 15 minutes of the second half, we kind of turned it on and it kind of steamrolled towards an end that felt inevitable. But that first 15 minutes, you just felt like 1-1 was going to be the way it went, didn't you? Like this shit Burnley team, we should have been 5-0 at half time. They come out rip raw through us for the first 15 minutes, score a goal, sit back and scam a draw.
I mean, and I was incredibly nervous right up until Weiffer smashed the ball in the net, because I was prepping myself for being angry and thinking about how this game was like the one that cost us Europe, and we'll look back on it. It's like, how could we not do this? Yeah, but by hook or by crook, thankfully, despite the fact, you know what, I think between both disallowed goals they had, the amount of different potential outcomes this game could have had, depending on if we'd have put our chances away versus whether Burnley got actually credited one or both of their goals that were disallowed. This game could have had like 18 different variations of outcome. So the fact that it ended up with us seemingly on paper looking like we comfortably won it 2-0 was absolutely, in my opinion, not really representative of reality. There wasn't, I mean, in terms of the second half, I don't know how many takes I have of like interesting thoughts. It was just sort of two sides with a football. I know that's one of the most stupid observations ever. People are tuning in and are like, wow, I'm definitely listening to this podcast next week. Did anything massively interesting occur to you? Like, you were there, Josh. What was interesting? What were your takes from the second half beyond the goal?
The weather. The weather was very interesting. I feel like we had all 4 seasons yesterday. It was wild. Like, we had really sunny time and then pissing it out of rain, then like bitter cold, then like windy. It was a wild day. That was probably the most interesting thing about the second half until Weiffer banged it in. That genuinely was.
Jack Hinch would scuff to finish, as usual. He got one of those in at one point, I think.
It was a very soft hit, wasn't it? Like, which, as you say, it was because he scuffed it. But like, man, like that was frustrating because that should have been a goal again. And I think that came from a Minte pass as well, from where he kind of cut in a little bit. So again, you've got like the ability to come in and create problems. And Jack Hinchelwood is a player that was there in the right position but can't finish. So it's a tough one.
That's just Jack Hinchelwood, though, isn't it? I feel like he just finds himself in these right places at the right time. Like, and he is 21, so like I think he's got a lot of growing still to do. But I guess you can't really teach just being in the right place, just having that natural knack sometimes. Which is like the most promising thing about him is that like he's already at this level at 21, and like he can get better, like a lot better. But yeah, I mean, I agree with the second half. It was kind of blah, really. You sort of, again, just two teams kind of going for it, but not really. And it was sort of just trying to see who would slip up first as opposed to who would force the issue. So, but again, like the permutations and I guess, yeah, just what was going to happen was completely unknown. And I really could see it going either way up until like the 88th minute, right? It was just sort of, I don't know which way this game is going. And to be honest, it's really tough to figure out. But I mean, it's one of those games. And I think when you talk about Burnley and having those disallowed and like just the chances they have, like we said earlier, when your luck's out, right? And it's one of those, we've been there before where you're kind of fighting for your life and like every sort of result and every chance matters. And just sort of when you're out, you're out. And we've been there, done it. And we saw it with Burnley yesterday.
Josh, what did you think of Reuter's introduction and what he offered when he came in?
There was the first 2 touches he had were an absolute disaster. The balls that came up to him, it was classic like number 9 hold up play. Shocking. Quite surprising, I'm sure you'll feel, is that when he dropped back a little bit into that more 10 midfield role at times, he looked quite good. Tidy first touch, laid off the ball a couple of times for a really nice kind of counter attack from Mitoma, I think, at one point. and generally looked a lot more dangerous when he dropped a bit deeper and provided problems. Rinse and repeat, I guess.
I mean, it's what Stephen summed up quite nicely in the chat. Router's about as consistent as my broadband router, which I think is quite a nice way of putting it. And that's why he's not starting. That's why we have Jack Kinchwood playing in the 10. We haven't seen the router that we saw. I'm trying to think back when the last time we actually saw a consistent router where he was putting in performances that were like, this guy can't be dropped. Start of the season?
Middle of last even.
Maybe even that, which is a bit of a shame because I think there was this period of time where it was like, oh my God, the amount we paid for Ruta at the time was considered too much. But then it became a thing like, what a steal we've got. We've got this guy that has incredible talent and control and touch and skill and hold up play, and he can finish. And then his ability to put that together on a consistent basis is lacking for him at the moment. And it's a shame. I hope he comes good again soon because he feels a bit like the missing piece for us. We just had a 15-minute conversation about what's the answer in the 9 and the 10 setup. Obviously, Danny Welbeck, if he's not finishing or it's not his day, who's scoring? It's like, well, the guy sat there on the bench. It's Ruta. That's what you bought him for. And if you can't feel confident bringing him in unless it's like late on in the game as a bit of a Hail Mary, that's a bit of a problem that we have.
It's so hard to know what's even going to happen this summer, right? Because there are question marks around Hertzler with Leverkusen.
I knew it was one of the German L teams.
Yeah, seemed quite enamored by him. And then obviously half the fan base still not bought into him, right? Like, so, and I mean, I guess that's a good segue onto the next week's game as well. But it's going to be really interesting because a lot of these players, outside of your Belabers and maybe Van Hecker as well, who's probably going to get a lot of money bid for him and he's probably going to be gone as well. A lot of these players, you can't be in a rush to go anywhere, can you? Because you don't know who's going to... Your whole prospects could change in an instant because we don't know who's going to be in charge next summer or next season at all right now, like for a multitude of reasons, right? So
doesn't matter. Does it matter? I mean, yeah. Also, while we're recording, it's in the 92nd minute of the Sunderland Spurs game with 11 minutes of stoppage. Sunderland are winning 1-0. Roberto de Zerbis' first game as Spurs manager. They are, if this Sunderland win this game, I believe Forest are about to seal a point against Villa. If that continues, you will then have Spurs fully in the relegation zone, 2 points off of West Ham. I bring this up, one, because it's funny as hell. Two, because you talk about next season and what happens in players. We'd be crazy if we weren't thinking that Roberto de Zerbi wouldn't try and pluck one of his favourites from Brighton to Spurs to fill one of the many gaps that they have there. It's not like Spurs are a poor team. They've got an aging Christian Romero. They've got Van der Ven. Why wouldn't he try and pair a Van Hecker with Van der Ven in the back line? So there's all these questions that we don't know the answer to at all. I don't even want to get ahead of ourselves. The only thing that I think we can focus on right now is the fact that this team has come around to winning ways again. We have gone from 2 months ago, most of this fan base saying Hertzler out. We don't want him anymore. Now it's a case of Hertzler is now being linked with premium German jobs because of some of the work he's done here. And we're staring down the barrel of potential European places. So
Steve in the chat asking about Minte going to Liverpool to replace Salah. I've seen that rumor this weekend as well. I think that just kind of goes hand in hand, Steve, with everything we've just said. Like, who knows who's going to be here and who won't next season. It's a World Cup year. So there are going to be one or two players that could be Brighton players, could be from anywhere, that are going to shine at this World Cup and get sold for outrageous amounts of money that they are not worth. You're going to see weird dominoes fall in ways that they shouldn't. You'll see lots of teams hold off on managerial appointments, waiting to see who gets sacked at the World Cup. You're going to see a lot of managers hold off to see who gets sacked in case they can get hired after the World Cup. So it's And then you've got players like Minte who, you're not going to know where they're going to go or what they're going to want to do, because Liverpool are going to wait to see what players happen to play well or get hurt or God knows what else at the World Cup. So, yeah, I think the only thing we can do is say that we play Tottenham Hotspur next week on the late kickoff on Saturday. Significant, more than ever, because of the Roberto de Zerbis appointment. I am very concerned, fellas, that this fan base, and that this fan base are going to embarrass themselves next Saturday. I have a horrible feeling that our fan base are more likely to cheer this Spurs team onto a win if they are all like-minded with Robin.
Behave.
Than they are for the Albion. I have a horrible feeling there are going to be Albion fans singing Roberto de Zerbis' song when we don't even have one for Hertzler. I have a horrible feeling that we are going to provide an almost net negative atmosphere to this football team when we are a run for Europe, because there are a lot of people that are incredibly emotionally invested in this manager, that regardless of what you think of his off-field behavior in terms of his attitude towards players like Mason Greenwood, he's not our football manager anymore. He's not our manager. And I'm very worried that we're going to embarrass ourselves on live TV, no less, by giving this man an incredibly warm reception, probably warmer than the Spurs fans themselves.
I mean, I think he's going to get a round of applause at the start. I wouldn't be shocked at the end of the game, depending on how it ends up. He will go out on the pitch and give a round of applause to the Spurs fans and the Brighton fans. And that at the end of, I think if we win, for example, and he comes out at the end, the Brighton fans will cheer and probably sing. Because it will be one of those things that's like, we missed the guy. Thank you for what you did, but we got 3 points off of you, so we're in a decent mood. What your perspective is on that, I don't know. In terms of the listeners I'm talking about here, from my standpoint, I just want to beat him and just get the 3 points and move on with the season. And that's nothing more to it than that.
I'm a little bit between both. I think more is going to happen than we realize. And I think to Josh's point, I think there will be a minority fan base that will be more De Zerbi than Hertzler. And I think that has been an issue this year, especially with comparisons and stuff like that, being able to be more emotionally vested in a manager that isn't ours anymore. Like, I think that's a weird one. And we've spoken about that ad nauseum around Hertzler's likability factor, or maybe his ability to resonate with the fans, etc. If it does happen, I'm not going to be best pleased about it, but I do think if you come out the other side and just grab those 3 points anyway, like, that's also a reflection of what this team is and what we're capable of doing. So
I think if we were in a situation where the last few games were not, they didn't play out like they have, and we were in that state, and we continued that bit of losing run, or we picked up 1 or 2 wins, and we're in the doldrums, and we're sat around, like we're in 14th, for example, right? Then I think it's fully ugly. Then I think it's like horrible. We want De Zerbi back. Like, we wish you were our manager setup. I think that would be the case. The idea that it'd be anything more than sort of high-level pleasantries at this point, when you've got Hertzler doing what he's doing with this team, I think would be a bit much, in my opinion. It's also the fact that while we're talking, and again, I know this is not interesting for people that are listening on Monday, Tuesday, Palace 94th minute penalty to beat Newcastle 2-1 is quite impactful potentially on our season here. And that Sunderland Spurs game, Palace and Newcastle United will now both be on what, 42 points sat there together. What has, off piece here, but what has happened to Newcastle this year? Wow.
No, you talk about managerial strife, right? Like, that's a pretty vocal. I don't know whether it's a minority or majority at this point. I just don't really know enough about the Newcastle fan base, but there's plenty of people not happy with Eddie Howe either. Like, quite a lot.
I think they have every right not to be. right? Like the amount of money that they're spending, I guess the expectations they put out into the ether. Like you can't be on 42 points with 6 games to go.
The 14th and not being like losing to Palace in a very close run thing to put them now above you in the table by literally 1 goal, because they're on -1 goal difference to Newcastle's -2. That is monumental in the rest of their season. They're now just, I don't know, treading water at this particular point. It's very funny how this has played out. If you were an objective listener in this regard, and Newcastle, with everything that's happened of their investment and the way it's played out, it's incredibly funny to think about the Saudi investment and the people involved in this looking at the club and the investment they made, and they're saying 14th in the Premier League. Like, that is just wonderful to see that it's failing.
Yeah, and I think that goes hand in hand with, as you were saying, like, would it be a failure if we didn't get into Europe at this point? There's so many moving parts with teams in Europe, not in Europe, cup ties, the fact that there are, you know, between Palace and 7th place, there are 5 points, right? Like between 14th and the Conference League place, there are 7 points. So, yeah, to me, like, you just can't predict anything. Like, I don't think it can be seen as a failure. What I think we can see as a failure is if Brighton and Hove Albion, number 1 in the form table, drop points to number 20 in the form table next weekend.
You know we will, though, right? You know we lose this game.
It feels inevitable, doesn't it? Because even regardless of De Zerbi, right? Like, even if it was like Tudor, whatever the hell, like Eagle Tudor or whatever, like, it feels inevitable that we would have lost that one purely on like Dr. Brighton memes alone. Top of the form table, they're bottom of the form table. Their home form is appalling. Like, it's just like, yeah, that's definitely one that we're gonna fluff up, isn't it? Like, and then we'll go on to win every other game until the end of the season and not get in by like 2 points, and that's the difference, was losing to Spurs.
I mean, it's not even. That's just what will happen, and it will be. Yves Bissouma is just going to come back from his muscle injury. He'll play 30-yard strike.
Well, it is over at the Stadium of Light, and they have beaten Spurs, so they are in deep shit. They are in deep shit.
I did have a few like Spurs fans reach out to me when De Zerbi was like appointed, and like the general consensus was like it takes like 5 games for him to get up and running. So like it's sort of the expectation was there. It was like we lost, like we got like what, 2 points from our first 5 games. So you know it was a bold appointment to say the least.
I don't think we won until Chelsea, right? Like the Chelsea game.
It was like 6 games. So like I don't think we won until like 6 games in, and like one of my friends was like, we only have 6 games. So like it's like that's not great. So
the thing is, I just don't know, like what was their alternative? They had to. This is just like one of those fully desperation moves. They're like, okay, this manager didn't work. Oh my god, we might get relegated. Bring this guy in. Oh my god, no, he's awful. We got get rid of him. Now, who's available? Who can we possibly bring? Because we can't bring in another temporary manager. Can you imagine what the fan base will do there? Another failed temporary manager, they'll hate us. So we've got to get someone permanent. Who can we get permanent that will get people excited? Oh, this really fiery guy. Oh gosh, no, what have we done?
Well, it's more of a shifting of blame from the owners, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's how I see it. Is it like, we got you your man, so therefore it's no longer our problem. So like it kind of feels that way, where it's like this shift of blame, not of mentality of any way, but it's like, here you go, you got your man, now you cannot blame us if it doesn't work, which is completely backwards.
Which is bizarre as well, because they wanted him in February, right? And he was at Marseille. They wanted him again before at some other point, and he said he wasn't willing to come that late. And then he said he was even less willing to come this late. So the amount of money they probably spent on him on like a signing on fee is outrageous alone. If they go down, like, I genuinely can see them like going down again, because the financial whiplash is going to be like, you know, remember when Leeds went in the shit like years and years ago, and Sheffield Wednesday and Leicester, like all those years ago, like in the last 10, 20 years, Like, it's going to be like that, I think, because they've spent so much and their wage bill is so high. And wasn't it that, like, all the big journos are saying that, like, there's no relegation clause on his, like, he could just sit there and bleed them dry.
I mean, it's
it's unbelievable.
It's pure cinema. That's what it is.
It's madness. And not only that, but I saw yesterday that the 24 hours post Wolves West Ham is the first 24 hours De Zerbi has ever spent in a relegation zone in his entire career. So when you read a relegation battle and a really tough one with a depleted squad, you probably want someone quite averse at managing you out of a relegation problem. The only experience De Zerbi has in the Premier League is inheriting probably one of the most world-class, the most world-class midfield that Brighton will ever witness in our lifetimes, probably. And a group of players that have gone on to be some of the best footballers on the planet. and then when they left, he wasn't very good. So, like,
and a man that basically, like, quit on the job in Marseille because he was flustered with being like 3rd or 4th after some bad results.
I mean, he quit here. Like, it's all well and everyone's gonna give him a round of applause, but it's so easy to do that because they remember the amazing season. And, like, we did have an amazing season, right? Like, all of us will remember how incredible that 6th place season was. Like, we'll probably never finish that high again. We all know how hard that is to do that. But the amount of people that seem to happily forget Roma onwards, it's just crazy. Like, he absolutely threw the towel in and didn't want to be here anymore and bounced at the first opportunity, like, and shit talked us on the way out. So, like, it's bizarre to me that Spurs would appoint him now. It feels like they should never have got rid of, well, any of the last few managers, really. Nothing's got better, has it? So you would have probably kept them in, and then you'd have... De Zerbi was going to be there in May. It's not like someone else is going to come in between now and May, was it? Like, just get him in May and then give him the full off season and let him do his thing next season, which he'd probably do quite well. But this is just a bizarre decision.
I'll say one last thing before I got to run here on this, because do yourself a favor, go to one of whatever AI preference you have and type in, like, if Spurs get relegated, help explain the financial implications to me. Because it is very humorous. So the record £120 million reported loss from the previous season, I think, right? If they get relegated, Premier League clubs are permitted a maximum loss of 105 million on a rolling 3-year period. In the Championship, that plummets to just 39 million over 3 years. So they would instantly find their 120 million yearly loss in breach of EFL rules, putting them points deduction risk. It's also that limits, some of the new squad cost ratio limits are going to impact them as well. Their TV revenue drops. Their parachute payments they would get purely just because of the drop and the lack of TV payments. Apparently the staff costs hundreds of millions, which would all have to go. The bottom line of all of it is, while it's impossible to fully understand it, they would have to execute, quote, one of the most aggressive player fire sales in football history to comply with the EFL's 39 million loss limits and avoid a severe points deduction that often traps relegated clubs in the lower divisions for years, to your point before. So
would you like me to look at National League South clubs around here?
So, like, can you imagine De Zerbi sat there overseeing this, and he's just got this pay packet, and he looks at his squad, and they're all just gone.
Well, he'll go too, won't he? But he's going to force them to pay him out. You know he will. He's not going to manage in the Championship, but he'll force them to pay him.
And it's a World Cup year as well. So you've got Van de Ven, you've got Romero, all going to the World Cup where they are going to play better than they currently are playing. So, like, I don't see how much of that 11 would even stick around. So the fire sale makes sense, but it's also inevitably going to happen because these guys don't even want to play for Tottenham anyway. So, like, it'll be funny. We're talking about it now as if we're going to go and walk in and beat them on Saturday. Like, it's a big game next week in order for us to, solidify where we want to be in potential European competition. But like if they don't buck up and they do go in the Championship, it'll be something we've never seen before.
Well, Stephen, it says an important thing in the chat. Like, it will have to be the #1 boxing venue in the UK. The Spurs Stadium.
Just NFL. That's
you are correct. So supposedly they have a 70 million annual depreciation charge and 30 million in interest cost off the back of the stadium, and they have to make all that back in NFL games and boxing and match day tickets. Their match day revenue will plummet because no one's going to want to go watch the games in the Championship. The impact on this is going to be akin to, but worse than when Juventus got the points deduction and got thrown into Serie C or B or whatever and had to work their way back out. And they basically were still allowed some level of sort of fraudulent behavior because it was Italy. And Spurs are going to be completely doomed.
Going to be a hell of an away day for flying Lincoln, though, isn't it?
Oh, just like I said before,
it's
going to be like a cup final day for every single Championship club going there.
Yeah, can you imagine Lincoln heading down to London to play in the Spurs Stadium? Stockport County, after getting promoted from the playoffs, to play in the Championship again. Stevenage just popping across London to play at Spurs. Like it doesn't bear thinking about. It would be so good that like it feels like the world on the current trajectory is not going to give us it because it's just too harsh and cruel out there.
No, we need it. We need to see De Zerbis sat there screaming on the sideline at home against Lincoln. There's 15,000 people in the stadium. Pedro Porro's just shanked across completely into the stands. We have to be able to see this. I want the game televised.
Being given the B team treatment away at Wrexham.
Yeah. Just wonderful.
Like anyway. You're not the A side here. Like the Ryan Reynolds is like having to just sit there. Brilliant. Lovely. All right. We will be back next week, probably around the same sort of time to talk Spurs, however that unfolds. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the weekend. We've got a big one in a minute, Chelsea City. Obviously those listening later on in the week know how that goes down. So when it ends 0-0, that's my fault. And yeah, have a good week, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.